People who live in the countryside and do practical work are belittled by those who live in the city, the former president of the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds or SPB has said. Kate Humble, who is a wildlife presenter, said that attitudes towards the countryside were disparaging and innovations which came from animals and nature were often ignored, because of a dismissive view of the countryside and natural world. Speaking following her talk at Henley Literary Festival, she said some ideas by rural pioneers were often seen as cranky nonsense. A lot of people are very disparaging about people in the countryside. They think they spend lots of time leaning on gates, chewing on bits of straw and doing not much else, she said. And actually the countryside is full of people innovating and being incredibly inventive, partly because a lot of the time we don't have the resources and the facilities that people living in towns do. Our default is sometimes to be a bit disparaging or a bit dismissive of the new, and what might be seen as quite quirky, but history tells us that quirky can and often does become mainstream, to our eternal benefit. She added that young people were in danger of losing contact with nature, including survival skills, which could sustain humanity in the event of an apocalypse. Citing novel Station 11, by Emily St. John Mandel, which is about a pandemic which leads to the collapse of society, she said, "Deep inside all of us we haven't forgotten our inner caveman, and it's the best bit of all of us." She added that she was ashamed to say that she did not have practical rural knowledge such as how to skin a rabbit. "I think it's really dangerous, if we forget the knowledge of our ancestors. We've only got the knowledge we have now because of the people who came before us, and to slightly dismiss it as old-fashioned, or as primitive is a big mistake," she said. That ancient knowledge, or the knowledge of people who live not in the Western world, is every bit as valid as the knowledge of some great scientist. She said farmers were the key to our survival, and did not receive enough appreciation from society. If that's the message that we send in education to our children, then all peril to our world. Ms. Humby used the example of medical assistance dogs, who can detect diseases early or alert nut allergy sufferers, but took several years to catch on. She said that while the first paper on medical assistance dogs was published in 2004, the idea took much longer to gain traction within the medical community. She said that as a species we are just crap at acting on evidence of new ideas. Charity Medical Detection Dogs now trains dogs to detect diseases including cancer and Parkinson's, and to detect nuts for people with severe allergies. Ms. Humble, who as well as presenting wildlife programs including lambing live, runs a rural skills center from her farm in South Wales, said her next book, about the psychology of walking, would examine the positive impact of being outdoors. She said it would be wonderful if part of the curriculum was more practical. Mucking about in nature is far more valuable than having 28 GCSEs and A levels, she said.